Not everyone who gets fired leaves quietly. When they terminated me for budget constraints, they forgot I held the only key to a $75 million partnership. 1 week later, they didn't just lose their strategic partner, they lost their entire existence. My termination meeting lasted 12 minutes. The email that destroyed them took 30 seconds to write. Sometimes the most expensive mistakes come wrapped in cost-cutting measures, delivered by executives who think relationships can be replaced with PowerPoint presentations. My name is Alexis Monroe, and for 9 years, I was the invisible architect behind every major international deal at Venlora Technologies. At 40, I'd built relationships that couldn't be bought, earned trust that couldn't be manufactured, and held knowledge that, as they'd soon discover, couldn't be replaced. That Wednesday started like any other. I arrived at our Arlington headquarters at 7:30 a.m., coffee in hand, already mentally preparing for the final round of negotiations with our European partners. The $75 million defense technology contract had been my baby for 18 months. Every late-night call to Brussels, every carefully worded clause, every delicate dance around international compliance, all mine. My office on the 14th floor overlooked the Potomac, a view I'd earned through nearly a decade of making the impossible happen. As Director of Strategic Partnerships, I wasn't just a title on an org chart. I was the human bridge between Venlora and the world beyond our borders. The ping of my calendar notification should have been my first warning. Urgent budget review meeting, 2 p.m., conference room A, no agenda, no prep materials. Just Lyle Cameron's name as the organizer. Lyle, the CEO's son-in-law who'd parachuted into our C-suite 6 months ago with an MBA from Wharton and the unshakable belief that any business could be optimized with enough spreadsheets. He'd been circling my department like a vulture, questioning every international trip, every client dinner, every relationship-building expense that couldn't be quantified in his beloved Excel models. I continued my morning routine, fielding calls from our Brussels team, reviewing the final contract language, confirming our legal team's sign-off on the compliance framework. The European partnership wasn't just another deal, it was Venlora's gateway to the EU defense market. 3 years of cultivation, countless hours of trust building, all leading to next week's signing ceremony in Luxembourg. At lunch, I noticed something odd. My access to the negotiation platform was showing errors. It brushed it off as a system glitch, promised to look into it. I should have known better. In corporate America, there are no coincidences, only preview screenings of coming attractions. By 1:45 p.m., I was walking toward conference room A with a strange weight in my chest. 9 years of corporate survival had given me a sixth sense for ambushes, and everything about this smelled wrong. The empty hallways, the closed doors, the way Patricia from HR avoided eye contact as she hurried past. Conference room A was our killing floor, the place where careers went to die. Floor-to-ceiling windows that offered no privacy, just a fishbowl for the rest of the office to witness your professional execution. As I approached, I could see them already assembled: Lyle Cameron in his $1,000 suit, 2 HR representatives with their manila folders of prepared scripts, and our general counsel looking uncomfortable. I paused at the door, taking one last breath as Alexis Monroe, Director of Strategic Partnerships, because I knew with the crystal clarity that comes from years of reading corporate tea leaves that I was about to walk out as something else entirely. What they didn't know, what their spreadsheets and org charts couldn't capture, was that I wasn't just an employee. I was a keystone. Remove me, and their carefully constructed deals would collapse like a house of cards in a hurricane. They were about to learn that some costs can't be cut, some people can't be replaced, and some mistakes can't be undone. I opened the door at exactly 2 p.m., my phone already heavy in my pocket with the email I'd drafted just in case. They wanted to cut costs. I was about to show them what expensive really looked like. 2 weeks before that fateful Wednesday, the signs had started appearing like cracks in a windshield, small at first, then spreading with inevitable certainty. It began with the meeting invitations that stopped arriving. The European Partnership Steering Committee, which I'd chaired for 18 months, suddenly convened without me. "We didn't want to overload your schedule," Lyle had said with that plastic smile of his, as if my schedule hadn't revolved around that deal since its inception. Then came the access restrictions. One by one, my permissions began evaporating. First, the executive dashboard, then the financial projections. By the Monday before my termination, I couldn't even access the shared drive where we stored the partnership documentation. Each time I raised it with IT, they'd fix it temporarily, only for it to fail again hours later. System migration issues, they'd explain. But I'd been through enough corporate coups to recognize a digital assassination when I saw one. The smart move would have been to confront it head-on. Storm into Robert Finch's corner office and demand answers from our CEO. But I'd learned long ago that in corporate warfare, information is ammunition. So instead, I became a digital pack rat. Every night that week, I stayed late. While Lyle and his MBA minions were sipping craft beers at happy hour, I was archiving everything. 9 years of contracts, correspondence, negotiation histories all backed up to my personal cloud. Not for any nefarious purpose, but because I could feel the ground shifting beneath my feet. The crown jewel of my archive was the strategic partnership agreement with our European partners. Specifically, Section 7, Subsection 3, a piece of legal language so tangled in international commerce law that our own legal team had needed outside counsel to interpret it. The clause that designated me, personally, as the sole authorized representative for partnership negotiations, a requirement from our European partners who valued continuity over corporate musical chairs. It was a quirk of European business culture, they'd said, a safeguard against the American tendency to shuffle personnel mid-deal. I'd pushed back initially, what if I got hit by a bus? But they'd insisted, and Venlora had been so eager for the partnership that they'd agreed. That clause was about to become very expensive. The Tuesday before my termination, I overheard Lyle in the break room, holding court with his hand-picked team of consultants. The partnership is locked in, he was saying, gesturing with his protein shake. Once we streamline the overhead, we'll be looking at 20% better margins. What about Monroe? One of them asked. Lyle's laugh was like nails on glass. What about her? Everything she knows is documented. We've got the contracts, the contacts, the whole playbook. Anyone with a pulse and a PowerPoint deck could maintain those relationships. I stood frozen by the coffee machine, invisible in that way middle-aged women become in corporate spaces. They kept talking, dissecting my role like medical students over a cadaver, reducing 9 years of relationship capital to line items on a budget. That night, I did one final backup, but this time, I also did something else. I opened the Strategic Partnership Agreement and read Section 7.3 again. Then I drafted an email. Not to send not yet, but to have ready, just in case. The subject line was simple. Notice of Representation Status Change. The recipient list included every legal representative from our European partners team, their compliance officers, and because I believed in thoroughness, the International Trade Commission that oversaw our partnership category. The body was just 3 sentences: professional, factual, devastating. I saved it to drafts and went home, knowing that tomorrow would bring either vindication or termination. In my gut, I knew which one was coming. What Lyle and his spreadsheet disciples failed to understand was that international partnerships aren't built on documentation. They're built on trust, on countless small moments of proof that your word means something. You can't transfer that in a knowledge management system. You can't download it from a shared drive. And you definitely can't replace it with a PowerPoint deck. Please, have a seat, Lyle said, gesturing to the chair across from him like he was offering me a throne instead of an execution block. The conference room smelled of fear masked by expensive cologne. HR had their scripts ready, papers aligned with military precision. Our general counsel, Marcus Webb, couldn't meet my eyes. We'd worked together on too many deals for him to feel comfortable witnessing this. Alexis, Lyle began, his voice dripping with manufactured empathy. I want to start by saying how much we valued your contributions to Venlora. The past tense. They always give themselves away with grammar. However, he continued, as part of our strategic restructuring to ensure Venlora's competitive position in the market, we've had to make some difficult decisions regarding roles that don't directly generate revenue. I let him talk, watching his hands gesture through the air like he was conducting an orchestra of corporate buzzwords. Synergies, efficiencies, optimization. The language of men who mistake destruction for strategy. Your position is being eliminated, effective immediately. We'll be transitioning your responsibilities to the existing team. I'm confident they can maintain our current partnerships while we pursue a more streamlined operational model. That's when I smiled. Not the polite, professional smile I'd perfected over 9 years of client dinners and tense negotiations. This was something else entirely. Have you reviewed the European Partnership Agreement? I asked, my voice conversational. Lyle's eye twitched. Of course. We have all the documentation. The deal is proceeding to signature next week as scheduled. I meant specifically, have you, personally, reviewed Section 7? The operational sections are handled by legal, he said, glancing at Marcus. The important thing is the commercial terms, which are locked in. Marcus shifted uncomfortably. Actually, Lyle, Section 7 contains some unique provisions, which we can discuss in transition meetings. Lyle cut him off. Right now, we need to focus on Alexis's departure terms. I leaned back in my chair, studying the man who thought he could reduce my career to a line item. Section 7.3 establishes personal representation rights. The partnership can only proceed with my direct involvement. It's not transferable. The room went silent, not the comfortable silence of understanding, but the suffocating quiet of dawning realization. That can't be right. Lyle fumbled for his phone, probably to pull up the document he'd never bothered to read. Corporate agreements don't work that way. European ones do, Marcus said quietly. I tried to flag this during the initial review. The partners insisted on continuity of representation. It's binding under international trade law. I stood up, gathering my dignity like armor. So yes, you can fire me. But the moment I walk out that door, I'm obligated to notify our partners of my status change. The deal will void automatically. You're bluffing. Lyle's face had gone from corporate tan to printer paper white. You wouldn't destroy a $75 million deal out of spite. Spite? I pulled out my phone, showing him the drafted email. This isn't spite. This is contract compliance. I have a legal obligation to notify all parties of any change in my representation status. Would you prefer I do it now, or after I clean out my desk? HR finally found their voice. Perhaps we should postpone this conversation. No, I said firmly. You've made your decision. Venlora no longer requires my services. I understand completely. My role doesn't directly generate revenue. I'm just the person who built the relationships, navigated the regulations, and spent 3 years convincing European partners to trust an American defense contractor. I looked directly at Lyle. You're right. Anyone with PowerPoint can do that. The general counsel was furiously typing on his laptop, probably pulling up the agreement. His face went pale as he read, Jesus Christ, Lyle, she's right. Section 7.3. Clear as day. How did you not know about this? Because he never asked, I said simply. In 6 months, has he ever once asked me about the details of what I do, or did he just look at my salary and travel expenses and see fat to trim? I picked up my company badge, laying it on the table with deliberate care. Gentlemen, lady from HR whose name I never learned, it's been illuminating. I'll clean out my desk immediately. And then, as required by the partnership agreement, I'm no longer authorized to represent. I'll send the necessary notifications. Wait, Lyle stood up, his carefully styled hair slightly mussed. Let's discuss this. Maybe we were hasty. No, I said, my hand on the door handle. You were efficient, streamlined, optimized, everything you wanted to be. The cost is $75 million. But think of the savings on my salary. The walk to my office felt like a victory march. Word travels fast in corporate corridors, and I could see the shock rippling through the cubicles. Assistants pretending to type while stealing glances. Junior executives suddenly very interested in their screens as I passed. I had 15 minutes before security would arrive to escort me out standard procedure for director-level terminations. 15 minutes to pack 9 years into a banker's box and send one email that would redefine Venlora's future. My office was exactly as I'd left it that morning, except now everything looked different. The awards on the wall, the photos from signing ceremonies, the lucite tombstones from successful deals, artifacts from a career that had just flatlined. I pulled out the banker's box from under my desk, the one I'd brought in Monday, because I'd known, in my bones, I'd known this was coming. My personal items went in first. the photo of my daughter at her college graduation, the hand-blown glass paperweight from our partners in Prague, the fountain pen my mentor had given me when I made director. Then I sat down at my computer one last time and opened the draft email. Subject notice of representation, status change. Venlora Technologies, European Partnership. To European Partnership Legal Team, Compliance Division, International Trade Commission, CC Personal Archive. Dear colleagues, effective immediately, I am no longer employed by Venlora Technologies and therefore cannot continue as the designated representative under Section 7.3 of our Strategic Partnership Agreement. Per our contractual obligations, this notification triggers an automatic suspension of all partnership activities, pending resolution of representation requirements. I have cherished our collaboration and regret that circumstances prevent its continuation under the current framework. My finger hovered over the send button for exactly 3 seconds. Long enough to think about the years of work, the relationships built, the future that deal represented. Not long enough to reconsider. Send. The email left my outbox at 2:47 p.m. By 2:48, my phone was buzzing. The European team's legal counsel, probably still at his desk in Brussels despite it being nearly 9 p.m. there. I didn't answer. That wasn't my job anymore. Security arrived right on schedule. 2 guards who looked apologetic. Tom and Derek, guys I'd chatted with every morning for 9 years. Sorry about this, Ms. Monroe, Tom said quietly. Don't be, I replied, picking up my box. You're just doing your job. Unlike some people in this building, you're actually good at it. The elevator ride down felt like decompression, each floor releasing a little more of the pressure I'd been carrying. By the time we reached the lobby, I felt almost weightless. My phone buzzed again, Marcus Webb calling, then again, Lyle Cameron, then a number I didn't recognize but knew would be Robert Finch, our CEO, probably just learning that his VP of Operations had lit $75 million on fire. I turned off my phone. The security desk required one last ritual turning in my parking pass, signing the termination paperwork, acknowledging the non-disclosure agreement that, ironically, didn't prevent me from sending that email. It only restricted me from sharing Venlora's proprietary information, and European partnership law superseded any NDA. They'd missed that too. When you think you're the smartest person in the room, you stop reading the fine print. Take care, Ms. Monroe, Derek said as I headed for the door. You too, I said. Oh, and Derek, you might want to update your resume. Things are about to get interesting around here. Outside, the December air hit like a wake-up call. I stood on the sidewalk, holding my sad banker's box, watching Venlora employees stream past on their way to coffee runs and afternoon meetings. None of them knew yet that their company had just suffered a fatal wound. But they would. My personal phone, the one I'd wisely kept separate from company devices, buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Heard you just became a free agent. Dinner tonight? Gavin Sparks, Titan Core. The corporate intelligence network was faster than ever. I wasn't even off Venlora property and the sharks were already circling. Or maybe they weren't sharks. Maybe they were lifeboats. I typed back, 8 p.m. Choose somewhere expensive. I have a story about a $75 million email you'll want to hear. Then I hailed a cab, gave the driver my home address, and didn't look back at the building where I'd spent 9 years building something that took Lyle Cameron less than 3 minutes to destroy. The beauty of destruction is that it creates space for something new, and I was about to build something magnificent from Venlora's ashes. By the time I got home, my phone had accumulated 37 missed calls. I poured myself a glass of wine, the good Bordeaux I'd been saving for a special occasion, and watched the chaos unfold from the comfort of my living room. The first domino fell at 4:15 p.m. An email from the European Partnership team, marked urgent, copying what looked like half their executive structure. We acknowledge receipt of your status change notification. Per Section 7.3, all partnership activities are hereby suspended pending resolution. We are deeply concerned about this development and request immediate clarification from Venlora's leadership. The second domino was more public. At 5:22 p.m., Reuters picked up the story. Venlora Technologies' European deal in jeopardy. Following key personnel change. My phone rang again. This time, I answered, It was Marcus Webb, and he sounded like a man watching his career cremated in real time. Alexis, Jesus Christ, what did you do? Exactly what the contract required me to do, I said, taking another sip of wine. You were in the room, Marcus. You saw them fire me. They didn't think. Lyle said you were bluffing. And you didn't correct him. His silence was answer enough. Marcus was a good lawyer, but he was also a survivor. He'd learned long ago not to contradict the CEO's son-in-law in public. They want to know if there's any way to undo this, he said finally. Sure. They can hire me back, restore my full authority, and give me written guarantee of position security through the completion of the European deal. Oh, and Lyle Cameron issues a formal apology, in writing, to the European partners. That's not going to happen. Then neither is the partnership. I heard voices in the background, urgent and overlapping. Then Marcus again. Robert wants to speak with you, the CEO. Tell Robert I'm no longer a Venlora employee. If he wants to speak with me, he can have his assistant schedule a consultation. My rate is $1,500 an hour, 4-hour minimum. Alexis. I hung up. By 6 p.m., I was watching Venlora's stock price tick down in real time. The Reuters story had been picked up by Bloomberg, then the Wall Street Journal. Defense contractor loses key European partnership in HR blunder was my favorite headline. The markets hate uncertainty more than anything, and a $75 million question mark was a lot of uncertainty. My doorbell rang at 6:30 p.m., a courier with an envelope marked Urgent Legal Documents. I signed for it, already knowing what was inside. A cease and desist letter, threatening legal action if I didn't remediate the partnership situation immediately. I photographed it and sent it to my own lawyer, along with a note. They fired me and now want me to fix their mistake for free. Please respond accordingly. The third wave hit at 7 p.m. LinkedIn notifications started flooding in. Connection requests from executive recruiters, messages from competitors, and one particularly satisfying notification: Lyle Cameron had viewed my profile 17 times in the past hour. I was touching up my makeup for dinner when the call came that actually made me pause. Not Robert Finch, or Lyle Cameron, or even Marcus Webb. It was Elizabeth Moreau, the lead negotiator from our European partners. Alexis. Her voice was warm despite the circumstances. I just wanted to say how sorry I am about this situation. Thank you. Elizabeth, I'm sorry too. We worked hard on this deal. Yes, we did. And it is unfortunate that Venlora did not value that work appropriately. A pause. I also wanted you to know that our organization remains very interested in entering the American defense market. Should you find yourself in a position to facilitate such partnerships in the future? The implication hung in the air like a gift. I appreciate that. Elizabeth, as it happens, I'm having dinner tonight with someone who might be very interested in that possibility. How fortuitous. You know, Alexis, we insisted on that personal representation clause because we wanted to work with you, not just your company. Venlora never seemed to understand that distinction. After we hung up, I stood in my bedroom, looking at myself in the mirror. 9 hours ago, I'd been director of strategic partnerships at a major defense contractor. Now I was unemployed, holding a cease and desist letter, watching my former employer's market cap evaporate in real time. And I'd never felt more powerful. The Uber to meet Gavin Sparks arrived at 7:45 p.m. As we pulled away from my house, my phone buzzed one last time. A text from a number I recognized: Patricia from HR, using her personal phone. Board called emergency meeting. Lyle's been suspended. Thought you should know. I deleted the message and turned off my phone. That was Venlora's problem now. I had a dinner to attend and an empire to build. The Capitol Grill was Gavin Sparks's choice old power, old money, the kind of place where 8-figure deals were dissected over dry-aged beef. He was already waiting when I arrived, positioned at a corner table that offered both privacy and a strategic view of the room. Alexis, he stood, extending his hand. You look remarkably relaxed for someone who just detonated a corporate bomb. Gavin Sparks was everything Lyle Cameron pretended to be: actually brilliant, genuinely strategic, and smart enough to know what he didn't know. He'd built Titan Core from a startup to Venlora's primary competitor through a combination of technical innovation and aggressive talent acquisition. Bombs are messy, I said, taking my seat. I prefer precision strikes. He laughed, a genuine sound that reminded me why Titan Core had such low turnover. I've been watching Venlora's stock price, down 12% in after-hours trading. That's some precision. The sommelier appeared, and Gavin ordered a bottle of Camus that cost more than most people's car payments. We're celebrating, he explained, though perhaps I should let you tell me what exactly we're celebrating. So I told him, the whole story, from Lyle's arrival to the systematic marginalization to today's spectacular finale. Gavin listened without interrupting, occasionally nodding, his expression shifting from amusement to calculation to something that looked like opportunity. Section 7.3, he said when I finished. That's brilliant. Whose idea was that clause? Elizabeth Moreau's, actually, the European team's lead counsel. They'd been burned before by American companies rotating personnel mid-deal. They wanted continuity. And they got it. Until today, he raised his glass, to unintended consequences. We clinked glasses, and then he got down to business. I want you at Titan Core, he said simply. Director of International Strategic Development. Full autonomy to build your team. Direct report to me. And this is the important part. Written guarantee that any partnerships you develop remain under your authority for their duration. You learn fast. I've been watching Venlora make mistakes for years. This one just happens to be more expensive than most. He leaned back. But I'm not interested in just hiring Alexis Monroe. I want the institutional knowledge you carry, the relationships, the trust you've built. Some of those relationships are very interested in finding new American partners, I said carefully. His eyes sharpened. How interested? I had a call from Elizabeth Moreau an hour ago. The European consortium still wants into the American defense market. They just need a partner who understands that relationships matter more than spreadsheets. And would these partners be open to discussions with Titan Core? With the right person facilitating, I think they'd be very open. Gavin was quiet for a moment, processing. I could practically see the calculations running behind his eyes, not just the immediate opportunity, but the long-term implications. Landing the European partnership wouldn't just be a financial win, it would be a massive strategic victory over Venlora. What else do you need? He asked. I want to bring 3 people with me. Sarah Martinez from International Compliance, David Park from Technical Integration, and Jennifer Walsh from Contract Management. They're all stuck at Venlora, watching their work get devalued by people who don't understand it. Done. What else? 6 months to close the European deal. No interference, no second guessing, no Monday morning quarterbacking from people who've never set foot in Brussels. Also done. And I want a signing bonus equal to what I'm walking away from at Venlora, plus 20%. He didn't even blink. I'll do you one better. Signing bonus plus equity participation in any deals you bring in. Real ownership, not just salary. Our entrees arrived perfectly cooked steaks that we both ignored while sketching out the framework of what Titan Core's international division could become. Gavin had vision. I had relationships. And together, we had something Venlora had just thrown away, the understanding that business is ultimately about people. There's one thing I need to know, Gavin said as we were finishing dinner. That email today, was it revenge or strategy? I considered the question. Why can't it be both? Venlora made a calculation that I was expendable overhead. I simply helped them understand the true cost of that calculation. And if they come back, offer to rehire you. They will, I said with certainty. Probably tomorrow, once the board fully grasps what Lyle has done, but some bridges, once burned, light the way forward instead of back. Gavin raised his glass again. To burned bridges and new beginnings, welcome to Titan Core. Alexis, let's go build something Venlora will be studying in business school failure case studies. As we shook hands across the table, my phone buzzed with another message, this time from a number I didn't recognize. Ms. Monroe, this is Robert Finch. Please call me immediately. We need to discuss your future at Venlora. I showed it to Gavin, who smiled like a shark scenting blood in the water. Your future, he said, just got a lot more interesting. Thursday morning arrived with the kind of corporate panic that makes headlines. By 8 a.m., Venlora's scramble to salvage the European partnership had reached desperation levels that would have been comedic if they weren't so pathetic. I watched it all unfold from my home office, already drafting my Titan Core employment agreement while Venlora's executives played hot potato with a $75 million disaster. The first call came at 8:20 a.m. Robert Finch himself, no longer hiding behind intermediaries. "Alexis, we need to talk." "Good morning, Robert. I believe my consulting rate was communicated yesterday. $1,500 per hour, 4-hour minimum. This is serious. So is my rate. You can have your assistant send the retainer agreement to my lawyer." He actually spluttered. 20 years as CEO, and he was spluttering like a first-year associate. "You can't be serious. You caused this situation." "I followed the legal requirements of a contract your company signed. If you'd like to discuss how Venlora found itself in this position, I'm happy to do so, on a compensated basis. The board is meeting in an hour. They want answers." "Then I suggest you ask Lyle Cameron. He seemed very confident yesterday that anyone with PowerPoint could handle my responsibilities." The second call came at 9:45 a.m., after what I imagined was a brutal board meeting. This time it was Harrison Lloyd, chairman of Venlora's board, a man who'd built his reputation on fixing other people's mistakes. "Ms. Monroe, I apologize for the circumstances of our introduction. I've just finished reviewing the termination decision, and I believe there's been a significant misunderstanding." "There's no misunderstanding. Mr. Lloyd, I was terminated for budgetary reasons. Lyle Cameron was quite clear. Lyle Cameron has been relieved of his responsibilities pending a full review." How unfortunate for him. I pulled up Titan Core's offer letter on my screen, admiring the equity participation clause. Though I'm sure he'll land on his feet. People with PowerPoint skills are always in demand. Harrison's voice took on the careful tone of a man defusing a bomb. "We'd like to discuss your immediate reinstatement, with improvements to your compensation package, of course." Of course, I let the silence stretch. "Unfortunately, I've already accepted another position.